Why are you here right now? Maybe it's not a coincidence. Perhaps there's a part of you, quiet yet powerful, longing for answers to things your rational mind can't explain. Your experiences are not meaningless, and by the time this video ends, a bigger picture will emerge, with a clarity you may have never seen before. You're a kind person, an open-hearted soul, always willing to help. But why is that kindness so often met with coldness or even contempt? Why do the relationships you nurture with good intentions slowly become one-sided and painful? You used to believe that kindness would be seen, appreciated, but instead, you're dismissed, taken advantage of, or simply ignored. And no, it's not because you're weak. It's not because you lack value. It's because unknowingly, you've touched a very deep primal part of human psychology, the part Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow doesn't hate you, but it reacts. And one of the ways it reacts is by rejecting anything it perceives as too soft, too vulnerable, like unconditional kindness. In this video, you'll uncover 5 deep psychological reasons why your kindness may cause others to lose respect for you. And more importantly, how to stay grounded in yourself. Not by becoming tougher, but by waking up and stepping out of the unconscious patterns you were never taught to see. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Mind and Meaning so you won't miss any upcoming videos on personal growth and spirituality. Now, let's dive in. 1. Kindness without boundaries will eventually be seen as weakness. There's an unconscious tendency in human nature, a quiet urge to test each other's limits. Not because people are inherently bad, but because they want to know, how far is too far? How much is too much? And if you're always available, always smiling and saying it's okay, always putting others before yourself, then to some, you stop being seen as an autonomous person. You become a resource, something to be used whenever they need. Psychology calls this the kindness exploitation effect. When you don't place any boundaries around your emotions or needs, you're silently inviting others in, no permission required, to take what they want. And sometimes they take a lot without ever thinking about the cost you're paying. In social dynamics, kindness isn't always met with gratitude. It's only respected when it comes with boundaries. On the other hand, your constant presence, your unconditional yes, can slowly make your value invisible. Not because you're not worthy, but because what comes too easily is often forgotten, until one day it's gone. And so that kindness, the very thing that once radiated light, gets mistaken for fragility. Not because it isn't beautiful, but because it isn't protected. 2. Your kindness is a mirror, reflecting what others try to hide. Not everyone can receive kindness with ease. For some, pure, unconditional kindness isn't comforting, it's unsettling. It becomes a painful reminder of parts of themselves they'd rather not see. They're suspicious because they've been hurt. They're guarded because in their world, everything comes with strings attached. And when you show up, open-hearted, asking for nothing in return, you unknowingly become a mirror, reflecting their deepest insecurities. Your kindness exposes things they don't want to acknowledge, that they've forgotten how to love without expecting something back, that they've never truly trusted anyone, that they've shut their hearts for so long, even light feels blinding. Subconsciously, they don't know where to place you, because you don't fit into the world they understand. And when something can't be explained, the easiest thing to do is reject it. That rejection often shows up as indifference, as coldness, sometimes even as contempt, not because you're wrong, but because your presence forces them to confront their own darkness, a part of themselves they're not yet ready to face. To some people, kindness doesn't open their hearts, it puts them on defense, because it touches a pain they've long buried. 3. When you're different, people will resist. We live in a culture that often values sharpness over sincerity, strength over softness, and gain over genuine human connection. In a world like that, someone who chooses kindness isn't doing so because they don't know how to compete, but because they've deeply understood the power of not competing. To many, kindness feels unfamiliar. It doesn't follow the usual logic. It doesn't demand a return. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't make deals. And because of that, it becomes unsettling. Unsettling to those who live by the rules of transaction. Unsettling to those who've adapted to environments where emotions are a luxury and trust is a risk. By choosing not to respond to hurt with hurt, by simply being present without calculation, you become a different path. And that in itself makes people uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because your existence forces them to ask, is there another way to live? What have I given up in the name of being realistic? Some will call you naive. Others will see you as a quiet threat, because you're a reminder that another world is still possible, one where people can live with compassion without needing a transaction. And for those not ready to change, your presence will always be met with resistance. 4. When you always give, people forget that you also need to receive. Generosity, when not paired with limits, is often misunderstood. It stops being seen as a beautiful gesture and starts to feel like a silent invitation. Take more. To others, you, the one who's always there, always reaching out, slowly stop being a person with emotions. You become a resource, a familiar presence, so constant that they forget. You also have tired days. That kindness needs to be replenished. It doesn't generate itself endlessly. And just like that, you're placed into a role you never signed up for, the one who never needs anything. But that's an illusion. No one is invincible. No one can keep giving without eventually running empty. The more generous you are, the more likely you are to be taken for granted. Not out of malice, but because people get used to seeing you strong, so much so they stop asking, "Are you okay?" That's when you realize respect doesn't come from always saying yes. It comes from knowing when to say no. Because kindness, without a backbone of boundaries, turns into sacrifice, silent, and sometimes emotional self-destruction. You can't be a place others lean on if you don't know how to stand firmly for yourself first. 5. When kindness becomes the default, it loses its sacredness. No matter how beautiful something is, if it's always there, always given without response, eventually it stops being seen as special. And the same is true for people. If you're always the first to reach out, always the one saying it's okay when someone needs something, over time you stop being seen as a precious soul and start being treated like a convenience. Your willingness becomes something people feel entitled to, something they can rely on at any moment, without ever considering the cost you're quietly paying. But kindness is not infinite. It's a stream of emotional energy, and every time you give, a part of you runs a little lower. You are not selfish for protecting your kindness. In fact, it's a form of wisdom. Carl Jung once said, "A balanced life requires knowing when to be the light and when to be the shadow." If all you know is how to give and never how to pause, you're not living in the light, you're burning yourself in it. And soon your kindness, instead of being a gift, becomes something ordinary, expected, no longer cherished. Remember, kindness only holds its value when it isn't consumed without care. Set boundaries, not to shut people out, but to keep your soul whole. And what about you? How many times have you offered your kindness only to be met with silence, or worse, with disregard? How many times have you quietly wondered, am I losing myself in the effort to be good? If you've ever felt that way, know that you're not alone. We're all learning how to walk that delicate line between opening our hearts and knowing when to close them, between being kind and protecting ourselves. Share your story in the comments, not to complain, but to bring light for yourself and maybe for someone else who's walking a similar path. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring the depths of human nature and discover how to stay kind without losing ourselves along the way.